Hi, this is Vicki with the Paper Connection. I'm an independent Stampin' Up! Demonstrator in the United States, and I'm here for Saturday's Fun Fold Day. How fun is that? I love it. So easy to do too. And I'm featuring Perfectly Plaid. I love the papers. I love the punch. Love the stamps. Everything about this thing, I love it. You can find it in the 2019 holiday catalog, Creativity is Calling. And it has just, I'll just show you, gorgeous suite of products. It's got the paper that has all sorts of plaids and designs. It's got the shaded spruce ribbon, the gold mini pizza boxes, the jingle bells, just so fun. And one of the papers is actually one of the designer series papers here. I don't know if you can see it here, but it's actually a Christmas tree that can be punched out using the punch. And so that's fun. I mean, you wouldn't even have to stamp a Christmas tree. You'd be able to punch it out with your punch. So neat. So anyway, without further ado, let's get started. Okay, I showed you the catalog, but I didn't tell you that if you would like to have one of those catalogs and you don't already have a Stampin' Up! Demonstrator, I would love to be yours. And just to let you know, all of the dimensions, all of the sizes, everything about this card, I'm not going to tell you while I'm going along because I don't remember. But they're all written down and they'll be at the bottom of this video. So if you just click the little arrow to the right of the title on YouTube, it will drop down and it will give you a list of all of the products that I use with a link to my store, and it will give you the sizes. All the way at the bottom of the description will be the sizes of all the papers that I used. Okay, my email address will be at the end of this video, and it will also be at the bottom of the the description. So if you would like to have a catalog, feel free to contact me. If you have any questions about making this, feel free to contact me. Share any love you got. I'll take any comments, positive or negative, any likes, shares, subscriptions, which is a good time to tell you if you have not already subscribed to my channel. I would love to have you be a part of that, and if you ring the bell, you'll get regular notice. Okay, now let's get started playing. All right, so I brought in my papers and I brought in my piercing mat and a piece of scrap paper. I'm going to do my stamping first, and I brought in my piercing mat because I'm going to use photopolymer stamps, and for whatever reason they tend to stamp so much better, the photopolymer, when you have that piercing mat up under it. So, and all I'm using is a little scrap from some of the other from some of the times that I have trimmed paper. That's a tip for you right there. You want to keep those papers close by. Don't throw those away because you can always use them for something else. All right, so may this day be a special season wrapped in love. And then I'm going to stamp on the inside of this one, Merry Christmas, right here. And that's all the stamping that we're going to do. So I'm just going to put this away, and I'm going to bring in my silicone mat, and we're going to put everything together. Okay, so as I mentioned before, all of my measurements will be at the bottom of the video. I do know that I cut it 4 1/4 by 11, and I think it might be like 2 1/8 or something like that. I can't remember. Just make sure you look at the video, at the description. So I'm just going to bring in my bone folder, and I'm just going to burnish that really well, and do that on this side. Okay, and then I'm bringing in my colors. I had 3 layers here. I'm layering with white, with Whisper White, shaded spruce, and then this beautiful plaid. Love it. So I'm going to go ahead and put these pieces together. I'll start with my shaded spruce. I tell you what, when you work with glue, can't pick it up. You get little pieces of glue everywhere. So I am constantly cleaning my mat up. Okay, so put that down. And then I love that green plaid. If you saw my last video with the perfectly plaid, you would have seen that I found out that my family heritage is Scottish. And I've actually been to Scotland, and it's, oh my gosh, it's just such a beautiful country. It's just enchanting. I went with my son and daughter-in-law and my husband, and we had such a time, such a fun time. We rented a castle, not a castle, a house. I mean, it was big like a castle to me. It had beautiful gardens, and we went into Edinburgh, and that was gorgeous. And I actually bought some cashmere scarves that were plaids, and oh, just absolutely love them. I felt like I was at home for some reason, and then later found out that I actually have Scottish heritage. So that's pretty fun. Then I'm just going to go ahead and glue this here. I'll tell you a little story. One time, it was actually when my son and daughter-in-law were getting married. We went to England, and we stayed in a bed and breakfast called, back then they didn't have Airbnbs, but it was a little bed and breakfast, and it was called the Old Rectory. And it was in a little town called Mavis and Ridware. And the owner of the bed and breakfast, his name was Rick and her name was Sandra. He was English and she was Scottish. And we were having tea with them one afternoon, and the next day was going to be the wedding. And she says, in the morning, should I shoot? And I had no clue what in the world she was talking about. I'm like, what now? Okay, and I see that I actually got a little bit of ink on there, so I'm just going to flip it over and I'm going to do that again. It's a good thing our paper is double-sided, right? So anyway, back to my story. So she said, should I shoot? And I said, I really don't know what you're saying. I'm sorry. She said, in the morning to wake you, should I shoot? We were staying upstairs, and I finally realized she was asking me, did we want her to shout up the stairs to wake us up? And it was so funny. I felt so bad that I couldn't understand what she was saying, but anyway. And so the next day we went down and we had breakfast, and I had never had pressed coffee before. And she has this beautiful tablecloth and everything set up for breakfast, and she has coffee made with her pressed coffee. And okay, time out from the story time. Let me just show you. This paper, I could have shown you, and I'm showing you now. This is what I was showing you on the catalog, that you can actually go in. This is printed on here. You can see it's a blue plaid on one side, and it is a Christmas tree on the other. So you just line it up and pop it out, and it's perfect, isn't it? I love that. Okay, so I think I'm going to have one tree going this way, and it really doesn't matter about the other one because it doesn't have a direction necessarily. Okay, so back to story time. But before I do that, I've already cut this out using my largest stitched stitched circle. And so what I'm going to do is I'm just going to put these two pieces together right about here in the middle. It's going to hang off just a tiny bit, and I'm okay with that. But I want to make sure that my little peaks of the Christmas tree meet, and then I will pop this up on Dimensionals and put it on there. Okay, so back to breakfast. So we go downstairs to breakfast, and it's just a wonderful English breakfast that she's made for us. And she has pressed coffee. I love coffee, absolutely love coffee, and you don't want to be around me in the morning if I haven't had my coffee. So I had never used a pressed coffee pot before. She has this beautiful tablecloth set out, and I go to pour coffee, and I did not know that you had to push the plunger down on the pressed coffee before you poured it. And I poured almost an entire pot of pressed coffee on her beautiful tablecloth. I felt horrible, but Sandra was just so gracious, and she didn't even act not even a little bit flustered by it, and which I found I was very grateful for that, because I felt terrible that I just poured coffee all over her beautiful tablecloth. I've figured that out since then. Pressed coffee, you always push the plunger down before you pour the coffee. So now I'm just going to add a few red rhinestones in here. I'm not going to put quite as many as I did on the other one. But anyway, that was just such a fun visit. We stayed in this place called the Old Directory. I think I told you that already. And it was built back in the 1100s. There was actually one wall of it that was still standing from the 1100s. The rest of it had been knocked down during the Norman War, and then it had been rebuilt in the 1400s. And it had been part of a church, and so we got to walk right next door to the church and see the inside. It was just so beautiful. So anyway, enough about story time. I'm going to finish this card, and what I'm going to do is I don't want to put glue on the bottom or else I won't be able to open it. So I'm just going to kind of gauge right about where my halfway mark is, and it's going to be right about here. And if you hear my phone going move, 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 it is actually probably a telemarketer. Ugh, drives me crazy. All the telemarketer calls that I get. Okay, so that's got my card made. Isn't that, oh, nope, no it doesn't. I got to put this on yet. But isn't that pretty, the makings of that? I love fun folds. They're so fun to do. And I love sharing them with you. Okay, so now I'm just going to pop this up on Dimensionals as well. I mean, it's such an easy card. It looks difficult with the fold, but it's really not. And I'll let you in on a little secret. If you struggle knowing what those what the measurements are, just know that the inside of your card needs to be 4 1/4 this way, and it needs to be 5 1/2 this way. Now those are American sizes. So if you're watching and you're from the UK, cut it half of your cardstock. And then make sure that you've got it whatever size it is that you use for your cardstock. But if you take it and then you just kind of, even if you don't do those yet, you have a piece that's not scored here. If you just take it and you bend it into the middle like that, you'll come up with what your measurements are. And that's all that I did. I just took it and I just folded it so that these two met in the middle. And then I measured it and I figured out what the measurements were on each side, and I knew that I had to have 5 1/2 here. So that's all you do whenever you're doing some of these. Just play around and you'll be able to figure it out. But isn't that a pretty, pretty card? It makes me so excited about Christmas. So anyway, this was a fun card to do. I hope you didn't mind my little storytelling there. And I hope that you're inspired to make one of these cards yourself. And again, if you haven't already subscribed, just click subscribe and ring the bell, and you will get notice when I have other cards coming out. And you may just hear another one of the stories of my life at that point. Anyway, thanks so much for joining me, and I hope you have a great day.